Listen up. Listen up. Listen up, your advocates. It is episode number 5, Cinco, and as your host, Alyssa, I am welcoming you to 2023. My slogan this year is Empower Women, Save the World, Daddy. And I hope y'all are with me. On this episode, we have the amazing Shondra Deloach, who has so much experience in the world in her 10 plus years in corporate, and she mentors a lot of women on goals, personal development, making your personal brand, and she's going to give us all the tips and tricks, and it's a listen up, so we'll get a little spicy, get a little vulnerable. In the news segment for this time around, though, I'm hitting you with New Year, New Laws. In California, trained nurse practitioners, midwives, and physician assistants will be able to provide abortions without the supervision of a physician. New Year, New Laws on abortion in New York. There's a new law that has other healthcare implications, but the one that I'm focusing on is it will require private insurers that cover births to also cover abortions without the requirement of co-payments or co-insurance. New Year, New Laws on abortion in Tennessee. A new law requires any abortion-inducing drugs, so things like Plan B and such, would be provided by a qualified physician in a medical facility, not through the mail or at pharmacies. I am sitting here with Shondra Deloach-Perea. So we have a heterosexual, she, her pronoun, top woman leader. Tell the amazing Listen Up advocates how we met.
Yes, we met through a mutual friend that I met at the gym, and she had a mutual friend that started going to the gym with us, and they had known each other, I believe, since like 5 years old. I think that's what they told us, since they were little. And this friend of a friend talked about this wonderful young woman named Alyssa who was in college, who had just graduated, who was at home during the pandemic, which was shocking because nobody knew what was going on with the world.
Which was complete crap, by the way. Totally sucked.
Yes, you got the short end of the stick with that completely.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I graduated in May of 2020 during the pandemic, obviously. So February rolled around of my senior year of college, and I'm at home on spring break in Vegas, which is where I'm from, where we're taking this interview today in Las Vegas, Nevada. And they said, hey, don't come back to school. So I was stuck at home in Vegas for months waiting to graduate and start my big girl job.
Right.
So that was the timeline, background story of what the timeline was of when we met.
Right. So we are at a friend's house, a girlfriend who was throwing an all-girls pool party.
So much fun.
Yes. And she had a daughter around your age. So those individuals came, as well as then this mutual friend said, hey, I'm going to bring my friend's daughter, and it's going to be her birthday in a few weeks. Make a long story short, we had this amazing pool party. It was fun, silly, goofy, girls being girls, a beautiful day in Vegas. And during that evening, we planned your birthday party with for the following week. And basically you said, my dad's going to cook for us. He'll give up the house. It's a special birthday. It's during COVID. A lot of my friends aren't here. Yeah. So she had some young women and then some older women all crashed at your dad's party. He cooked for us. We swam, had fun. And ever since then, it's been history.
Yes. Yeah. So Shondra is now dating my dad.
Yes.
Which is so funny. So I always like to joke with him, I knew your girlfriend before you knew your girlfriend. So we were friends before you guys were friends.
Yes.
What did you think of me when you met me? I think for anyone who doesn't know me and tunes into a Listen Up podcast, this could kind of be a little insider
about you?
About me, of what it's like to meet me right off rip.
So when I first met you, I think the craziest piece is I kept on telling myself, and I think you'll probably remember, I kept on saying, if I could do life over, you would be me. Do you remember that?
Yes,
I kept on saying that. If I was doing life over, you would be because not only are you biracial, and you have Black and Latino, same with myself, there was many little pieces of attributes that I kept on saying that as older women, those are now my attributes. And what could I have done if I would have been your age with those same attributes that I have now? But it took me so long, it took so much energy to get those, whether it's through peers, mentors, friends, family. And I'm like, look at this damn young woman, badass, knows what you want, has goals set, is still discovering who you are, but you're very open and authentic. And you spoke from the hip, but you also are professional, but in a fun, loving, caring way. There was just so many pieces of you that I felt were very much the same, whether it was things that we were raised, having stricter parents, but then also having a parent who wasn't as strict, but very much like my mother.
Right.
And I think how you explained your mother. So all these little attributes, but then when we would talk about your goals, what you wanted, you worked in the human resources realm. That's where I started my career off. As a young woman, you have a very much creative zone. I was that same exact person.
Yes.
You're into fashion and funk and various genres that excite you very much. So there was a lot of things that I would say similar. And then there was the differences that I picked up on were that, again, you were empowered, but you were also naive in certain ways. You were very confident, but you were also very aware and mindful areas that you may not be confident in. So many of the yin and yang to Alyssa got me so excited because, again, you put it on a platter when you meet people. You're not fearful of what people will think about you, or you're mindful and you want people to like you, but that's not how you drive relationships. You really try to pick up on people's personalities and those little special pieces of a human being so that you could either highlight them when you're talking to them, but you have a talent to do. You have a talent that's ingrained in you. And so again, besides me picking up on that and trying to relate to you and excited, the other piece is because I work with so many young women and that's what excites my soul. And I should just say women in general. I mean, life is difficult. Relationships, friendships are difficult.
Yes.
But looking for people that have those same goals and that drive and that eagerness, that grit and grace is something I saw. I saw in you instantly, and I just kept on thinking, if this young woman keeps that same level of excitement and passion and trajectory in her career, personally, professionally, where you can actually be. What I think, like you said, when you started 20 years in the same industry, over 20 years in the same industry, and then you are basically the same age, close to it, that I worked in an industry. Imagine where you'll be in 20 years from now. If you keep this level of again, it's really great. Yeah, trajectory. Yeah. The sky's the limit. Truly, there is nothing that you could say you couldn't do unless you didn't like it or didn't want to do it.
And that is absolutely the energy for 2023. I'm so glad that you say all of this. It is, I'm sure you all can hear the passion in Shondra's voice right now and just like the empowering energy that like is fuming off of Shondra, and just like her, I can tell, I've never worked with Shondra in a professional environment, but I can just feel like it would be amazing to have someone like Shondra on my team, or like on a team in general. Just the energy you can feel, like the empowerment. I feel like I try my best to always be that energy to other people, the empowering, like, this is what I see in you, like, see potential in others and be outspoken about what you see in other people. Because I'm sitting here right now, not very many people have taken the time to say all those things about me. But I know that because we share this in common, we make it a point in our friendships, relationships, partnerships, whatever they are, to point out those great things in other people, and then be mindful where we still have work to do. But I just feel really grateful to like receive that for once, rather than like always giving it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
And you touched on so many traits like professionalism, grit, confidence, but mindfulness of where there's still work to do. Would you say that those are the kinds of traits that women and underrepresented genders
should be focusing on if they're trying to make sure that they are progressing the way you have progressed and I'm trying to progress in my career and just personal brand development?
Right. As I've gotten older and wiser, I believe, and mature, I've learned to also be very careful by using those labels, right? Because, and why I say that is, yes, for me and you, when I was explaining what I saw in you, they were attributes and behaviors that I respect and that I adore, but I also think it was because there were similarities.
Yeah.
As I get older, I appreciate the differences. So I have, colleagues and friends and peers that, when you grow up, you gravitate to like-minded, right? Or you gravitate to things that you really think are important, right? So you think, being a social butterfly, whatever it is, you'll gravitate because that's what you feel like you need to get to. So when I say what helps women or men or whatever that I'm interacting with, it's more about being okay with who you are, whatever that is. So if you are the introvert, it's okay. If you are the social butterfly, it's okay. If you're those people that go hybrid, is that cool word, I guess you would say during the pandemic, but we're hybrids, so we're chameleons.
Sometimes extrovert, sometimes introvert.
Yeah.
And then there's those what do they say? Introverted extroverts and then extroverted introverts.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I really am more now, rather than going in and I'll say this is how I am, but I'm very careful and mindful now to not express that when somebody else is going to be successful or whatever, to use my attributes as their way.
As the best attributes.
Yes, because I used to my psyche would help me say that when I was younger. Now it's more about, what do you need? Is it that you need to have that close support system that helps you get to the next level? Is it that you are just fearful, so you constantly need reminders that you're safe? What is it that makes you, or what is holding you back? Because your obstacles are so much different than maybe my obstacles. Yes, if they're the same, it is easier because I could then use that experience, but it's more about sharing my experiences and maybe little pieces will help somebody else in their own path versus me trying to share my experiences as this is the path, which has taken time because I didn't see it that way. And I thought, again, when we say the word grit, we'll use an example, it's a definition, but grit to me and you could be that we constantly put ourselves out there, right, to help the next person. But grit to maybe somebody who's not as social as us, it could be that their grit is that they have to, read maybe affirmations every day to build their confidence up or something. So it's being careful, but being mindful. But I would say out of everything, when I look at people that are exploring, discovering, or wanting to grow or develop, it's really, to me, about goals. What is their plan? And, again, I've had many great leaders before me or friends or family members that is a question. What is your goals? What do you have your mind set on? Because without the goal and without understanding how I'm going to get to the goal and trying to put a pathway so I could either put myself in that certain environment or be around people that work or carry those attributes that I'm trying to get to, I'm very mindful of those goals. Because if not, things can happen. You can just miraculously find yourself in this lucky position. I rather make my luck
Be intentional.
Yes, and put myself as much as I can in that scenario. And again, that's what I always look at when I'm talking to people. Are they doing that, or are they hoping there's an easy button? Because again, we also do that. I'm not going to say that, again, this reflection that I'm saying to you, I've done it the good way, I've done it the bad way. I've had to reinvent myself in doing and trying to figure out the brand. I'm constantly challenging myself. So it's not like when I think about, where I'm at, I still sometimes now it's more about, oh my God, I only have, I'm at an age now where I'm scared more because I want to do so much still. Versus when I was at your age, I had the vision and goal, but I really didn't know how I was going to get there, right? So to me, I would say trying, and what I know you're doing is setting the pathway of this is what I want to do. This is the space that I want to be in. This is how I want to help people. This is what makes me feel better. This is, those types of constant reminders, because again, your paths kind of go like this.
New year, new laws in healthcare. In California, SB 107 goes into effect, which makes California pretty much a sanctuary state for gender-affirming healthcare. It also shields transgender patients, including youth and their parents, from any legal action from states with bans or restrictions in other states, right? New year, new laws in healthcare for Maryland. The price of insulin will be capped at $30 for a 30-day supply for individuals on state-regulated insurance. How about federally? Federally, still talking about insulin? The Inflation Reduction Act will go into effect this year, which caps the monthly out-of-pocket cost for insulin at $35 for seniors on Medicare.
Everything you're saying makes complete sense, and it's actually really refreshing to hear someone in a more experienced generation talking about how actually I know that I hold really great attributes, but I know that the way that I'm doing it is not the best way or the only way. And I think I very rarely hear that from top leaders like you. So that's actually really, honestly, beautiful that you took your path, you believe in your path, believe in yourself, but you're not sitting here saying now that you're successful and you're still striving towards more success, but now that you're in a pretty comfortable place, you're not sitting here telling us, hey, get like me. Right. You're telling them, get like yourself, but whatever you do, have goals and have plans. So you're saying, yeah, there are some attributes that you would look for in certain people for your goals and your pathway and things, but it doesn't quite super matter what your attributes are. It more so is, what are you doing with them?
Exactly.
How are you capitalizing on the skills that you have, and how are you developing yourself in the areas that you know you probably need some work? What would you say, because we're going into 2023, Happy New Year, what would you say can help someone capitalize on their attributes? Like, I'm sitting here with some characteristics, but I don't know what to do with them. Like, what are some things you could do to get that kind of self-awareness and know what you bring to the table?
If you have certain attributes or don't have certain attributes, how do you know where you stand? The best thing to do is first ask people close to you. Like how you asked me.
Okay. What did you think about me when you met me?
Yes. Yeah. And they always, again, this is when I say they always say, the studies say, and I've read it a few times, and I believe it's things like in Harvard and Gartner and some of the SHRM, RM through
SHRM,
through human resources variations of their whatever business books that I've read too. They'll say that we as humans think that we are 20 to 30% better than we are. So when you're answering those little bubble questions, how friendly are you, or do you have gratitude? Normally as humans, and rather than saying we're neutral, and how are we comparing ourselves, we always put that we're better or excellent at it. So to me, I go back and say, why is it? It's critical. It's critical for you to ask people you're close to, how do you perceive me? When and ask the questions and be very intentional on how you're asking it, because you may be asking it for them to tell you the answer the way you want to hear it. So
yes, that's a really important caveat.
Yes,
I think we can all think of a time that we have done that. You're searching for the answer that you want to hear. We all have those yes men friends.
Yes.
That no matter what toxic BS you're up to, they're like, yes, do it. Yeah. You're the one cheating and fooling around. They're like, well, he sucks.
Yeah.
So that's really important. Be intentional about the questions that you're asking. So you're saying ask peers. And ask why.
Ask why.
Ask yourself or others if you're mentoring them, but yourself if it's your own journey. Why do I want that promotion? What is it about that goal that's going to fulfill me?
Right.
Why do I want the things that I want?
Yeah.
Why am I pursuing this career?
Right. Because it's usually much deeper. Sometimes it's because maybe, again, sometimes it goes down to childhood. It could be in school, they never had the resources or support that they needed to get A's because they had to be home to babysit 3 or 4 kids. Again, I'm just making these things up. But the reality is they cut themselves short, not intentionally, but because they had other priorities.
Right.
So when you ask those questions, a lot of times it's because we are ultimately the person that's holding ourselves back in some sort of way, whether because we're not asking the bosses the right questions, we're not making sure that the leaders around us know that we want that role or position, because maybe certain people didn't finish school and their fear is if I don't finish school, I can't get there. Well, maybe they can't get X job, but maybe there's other Y and Z jobs out there.
Yeah.
And if they don't say nothing, how is anybody going to help you? So it's really, again, being okay and finding that space, but asking questions. And why I was telling you about the questions is when you first ask your friends or peers or family members, you're going to get one perspective. So I was going to say that then the next perspective is to go to colleagues that you work with or your boss. Even bosses don't like to provide, in most cases, that level of constructive criticism, right? You want to coach.
Feedback is hard for everyone.
Right. You want to coach and develop them without sometimes bringing up those attributes because it could be a trigger for them. But at the end of the day, the quicker you get there, the faster you can resolve it. In most cases, if you're able to get there quickly, and your friends are like, well, if you could do this or you could do that, and I try to do this often with my people I manage, close coworkers, even friends and family.
And so what I'm hearing is get feedback from your personal relationships, people who know you personally, and then compare that with what people say that you work with. So your colleagues, your boss. Boss would probably be one of the best because you would probably get a lot of great information from that and be able to use it in so many ways.
Yeah.
And also be asking yourself why you want to pursue the things you want to pursue.
Yeah.
New year, new regulations in Missouri. Meanwhile, in the Missouri House, Republican Representative Ann Kelly proposed and successfully voted in an updated dress code only for women in the House, which now requires them to cover their shoulders by wearing a jacket like a blazer, cardigan, or knit blazer, when the previous dress code for women required, quote, dresses or skirts or slacks worn with a blazer or sweater, and appropriate dress, shoes, or boots. Men in the Missouri House of Representatives are required to wear a jacket, shirt, and a tie. So just highlighting the really, really important work that Missouri is up to. This is one of the first things they want to put in place in their legislation for 2023. So very, very important work, Missouri.
Really, again, like you were asking when we first started, that's our brand.
Yeah.
How we want to be looked and seen and felt and heard is our own personal brand that, some people stay in that box and don't deviate out of their brand. I think when we and I have talked about it, I'm always, even at my age, always discovering myself, trying to be comfortable, but not always comfortable, so in certain situations is my safe space. I may be more comfortable at home. But outside of my home, there's things that I'm conscious of that I try to always show up and project who I want to be in that greater version of myself in everything I do.
I think there are so many great themes going on right now. Like self-advocacy is definitely a theme I am hearing through all of your answers. Like every single thing that we're talking about, speaking up about it. No one's going to know what you want, how you want it, and if you exist, if you don't speak up. So that's what I'm hearing there, and I'm hearing like being intentional.
Right.
Being intentional about the moves that you're making, the people that you're asking for feedback, who you're asking for feedback on, and be intentional about your decisions and your way that you're projecting yourself, because it's always a reflection of you, of your personal brand.
Right.
And now so self-advocacy, being intentional. You've been in the industry for 20 plus years. You've been climbing the ladder. You've probably have impacted so many people on a personal and professional level. You've empowered many. Shondra has personally empowered me in many realms of my life. How have you used intention and do you manifest? Do you set out those plans? What does that look like when Shondra is planning for 2023?
So, I try to use, and thank you for all the kind words.
Of course.
Thank you. But I try to always So I'm always planning. And I think you and I were laughing again. I don't have it. We're sitting in my work office. I'm in my home office, but I am sticky queen, like Post-it notes. So it's kind of old school because again, most people, but when I say that, I am a person every day, whether it's work, at home, I even make lists for the holidays. I have a Christmas list. These are the people I'm buying the gifts for. I have a row to say what the gift's going to be. Where am I going to get the gift? Is it going to be shipped out? I do it every year, right?
Wow.
So I'm very organized, but intentionally organized, but some of it's old school because some of it is more visual. So I'm a Post-it note queen.
Post-it notes sounds like your spreadsheet for Christmas is probably like immaculate. Or is it on paper?
It's on spreadsheet. It's on a spreadsheet. Yeah, and I normally will sometimes print it, but I am trying to be more sustainable. Yeah. I really don't use that much paper, but when it comes to the Post-it notes, I do. So why am I saying that to you? It's because it's about the goals. So I have goals every single year that I set. I don't have it in here because I have it in my office, but I do a vision board to try to help myself manifest. I believe, and I've seen it happen. It's happened with me. It's happened with people I've managed. I believe strongly, I believe strongly that when you tell yourself certain things, good, bad, or indifferent, I try to tell myself a lot of good stuff, that you surround yourself around it. So I think, again, it's intentional.
You mean like self-talk, telling yourself things,
yes.
Like the talk we have in our mind?
Yes, the talk that critical talk, so that what they say, like the angel and the bad person on your side, or whoever this bad person is. It could be somebody you know, it could be something your psyche, it could be whatever you want to say it. But we have the critic, which is ourselves. Internally, it's that critic, that fear, the power, empowerment inside of our heads. Insecurity, exactly. All of those things are in there. So every year, when it's coming to the end, I look and reflect on what was my goals for that year, whether it was, personal, and I usually try to think of something personal, something more professional, more spiritual in that realm, and health. So
personal, professional, spiritual,
and health. Yes.
So 4 pillars. I agree.
Yeah.
I would say those are like the 4 realms of life where we should be making goals.
Right. So and I put them into a place and I put them on this vision board so that I physically have to look at them. Now, I'm not going to say that some of them I do, some of them I change, some of them aren't as important, and they don't divert drastically. That's another thing. It's not like I have something, crazy that's on there.
Like every year it's something totally
crazy. Yeah, no.
Like they usually build off of each other. Like I made a milestone last year. I want to make another milestone this year.
Exactly. And I don't make them so unrealistic. Yeah, like something just, again, I'm not saying that those are wrong for everybody. Somebody might have a goal that they, that they're working hourly and they're going to be a CEO of a company, or they're going to open their own business or whatever. Those could be in some ways like, oh my God, it's not even that I'm referring to, because that could be somebody's goal. It's more that thinking of I better even say it in a better way. What could happen if I don't do it?
Love that.
Sometimes I think about that, like what will happen if I don't do it? So
yes, we've talked about this. Like
what? Yeah, because if you do it the other way, you almost set yourself up to fail. Yep. So we'll think of it like, is how important it is for me. Is it something important because I have to get it done? People will have things like, I want to travel. I'll use that one. I want to travel. And then you'll be like, oh, all the questions out. Like, what type of travel? International travel. Oh, but do you have a passport yet? So those are the things. So maybe the goal in my mind would be, rather than me setting out the goal to travel, my goal is in the next 6 months, I'm going to get my passport. See where I'm going?
Yes, because narrowing it down to be more specific. And that's why you ask those questions like why, and how, because now you're making an attainable goal that once you get that passport, you give yourself that win feeling, that celebration feeling, like, oh my gosh, see, I can travel. I already got my passport.
Let's talk about it.
Yep. Then when you have, like you said, and you already answered it, when you have what those goals kind of look like, but not yet. And again, I like I said, I try to do it like October, November is to look back. And throughout the year, I'm looking at it. I write it on the vision board. There's other little things. Sometimes I'll put them in my top of my calendar, so I have to see it, or things that I know.
Every week.
Exactly. That's my fake Post-it note.
Reminders.
Yes. To keep myself on track. I try to also, again, like on Sunday, which I think a lot of people do, that, whether, it's like remanifesting a reflection of what was my week, how did my day go, what are things that I need to do again in the following week to keep myself on track, but also give myself permission if I don't do it. There's sometimes, again, I haven't done the goal, and why is it? there's nobody to blame except for myself. I take full responsibility, and in my head, I'll say, then it wasn't important enough as a priority. Why wasn't it important as a priority? And there's many times, there's reasons, but none of the reasons, the only reason that is really there is because of me. Either I stretched myself too thin, I didn't make it a priority, or I really didn't want to do it. And then I have to really work on why didn't I really want to do it.
And then it's easier to accept that. Like
Right.
if you go into your goals and you're like, I know that everything that happens and does not happen is on me. Well then shoot.
Yeah.
You better even do it, or cope ahead, or make sure that what you're not going to do that year, you've answered those what happens if I don't.
Right.
Because if it's what happens if I don't, it's like, oh, I'll lose my job, then yeah, probably needs to be like priority number one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and if not, then you better have a lot of money in your bank.
So it seems like the what will happen if I don't do it is a really good method for, once you have your goals, prioritizing them.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's definitely what I'm gonna do. I haven't made I think at this point I've made my big goals, but right now they're very vague. And so now in the next couple days, I'm looking to schedule out what is the action plan for that.
Right.
And I am going to check back with you guys. I'm going to use this method of what will happen if I don't in order to prioritize things. Because for me, I'm good at making goals. I'll make a goal. I'll make an action plan. But the prioritization, I think, is where I fail right now. I think that's where I'm struggling, because I'm like, I want to do everything. And I don't know if anyone else experiences this, but does anyone else get like toxic confidence in themselves sometimes? Like when you are someone who is really intentional about your self-talk, you can kind of positively self-talk yourself into thinking that you can do way more than you actually can. And so like, that's my issue. Like I'll spread myself thin and think I can really like do everything personal, spiritually. And I'm like, wait, there's only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at your prioritization, is there any realm, like when you're prioritizing, do you still make sure that regardless of my priorities, I have one goal for each of those realms that we talked about?
Yes.
New year, new laws in criminal justice reform. Shout out to Jenna Caldwell on episode 2. Listen to episode 2 if you have not, for highlighting the need for criminal justice reform with her book, Still Waters. New year, new laws in criminal justice reform. California, in the state of California, the Keep Families Connected Act goes into effect this year, which will make calls to and from prisons free. Also, SB 1228 will go into effect, which prohibits law enforcement from using any DNA collected from a sexual assault victim from being used in the investigation of any unrelated crime. New year, new laws in criminal justice reform in Michigan. Beginning in April, up to 2 felony convictions will automatically be expunged after 10 years of a person completing their sentence, as long as they don't commit another crime. In Connecticut, the Clean State Act will go into effect, which automatically erases criminal records 7 years after the date of the misdemeanor conviction, or 10 years after the conviction date for the felony, only certain felonies, and it's all only if they have not and do not convict any other crimes in the meantime. New year, new laws around the workforce. My people in the workforce, listen up. In Illinois, the Family Bereavement Leave Act will go into effect, which will now cover events negatively impacting pregnancy or fertility. In California, SB 951 goes into effect, which increases the leave for lower and middle income employees to cover more of their regular income when they take any time off in the event of caring for a family member. In Rhode Island, the Equal Pay Act goes into effect, which requires equal pay for equal work, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, nationality, age, or disability. Wow, it's 2023, and Rhode Island is just putting that in place. I was also surprised to hear that. In DC, employees will be eligible to receive 2 weeks of paid medical leave to care for their own health condition under the current paid family leave policy. Yay for independence. And by the way, I retrieved all of my information from @SoInformed, @Hippie Foundation, and PBS.org, and CNBC, and CNN, as you should always check my facts and always be curious. I'll listen up and let's get back to the interview.
My big piece that this past year, and I believe I did it pretty well, again, I'd have to go and ask the people that were involved in it. But I really realized, and again, through my partner, your dad, that a lot of times when I'd be on the phone, whether I'm talking to my mom or to my sons or, to my father or whatever, that I wasn't present. Like I would be in the front room, he's in the front room, we're watching TV, I'm talking to him, I'm talking to whoever's on the phone, half, watching TV, possibly have my work computer out, whatever it was, and he would be like, go talk on the phone. Like, give yourself the time to go talk on the phone, or take yourself out of the room and take all, leave everything there. So it was being present, truly present. And so that was one of my goals, being more present. So
that was a goal for 2022?
Yes, it was a goal. And I did it a lot. And because it was a goal and I had it in front of me on my vision board at work and I would think about it, I would catch myself, especially if I was on a call with an employee, like on a one-on-one, I would catch myself if I would look down at my phone. Like my psyche would catch myself and I would think of that goal, be present, and I would turn my phone down.
You set up these accountabilities.
Yes.
Like this, really what I'm hearing, so like she had a goal for like being more present. And then her spiritual realm, which is her relationship with my dad, is reminding her, hey, like because she chose to share her goals with the people she exchanges energy with heavily. Now she has set up accountabilities in her spiritual world, her relationships. Hey, my dad's like, hey, go handle your phone call. You don't have to do everything at once. Like, I'll be here when you get back.
Right.
And then here you are providing your reminders for yourself. And then you're putting in those accountabilities personally, like, okay, I want to be more present. More present is a huge goal, but I know that every day I can make sure I don't have my phone. I'm not looking at my phone in my meetings.
Right.
So you took that big goal, made sure that you had like the contracts or accountability set up, boiled it down into small actions, and then here you are feeling good at the end of a meeting like, I wasn't on my phone during that meeting, not one time.
Right.
So then you're like, I am making progress in my personal development goal that was so big, like being present.
Absolutely.
I hope that listeners and viewers are seeing how the tools that we described are applied and how easy that really can be, because I hope that this podcast is a positive influence on everyone's goal setting, and I hope you all accomplish what you want to accomplish in 2023, and we are sending you all of that energy, that positive manifestation, whatever that looks like for you. I hope that happens for you this year. We've talked about self-advocacy, and we've talked about being intentional with our actions. And a huge part of Listen Up Podcast is we don't do judgment here. So if you guys remember, rule number 1, leave your judgment at home. This is a safe space. That's rule number 1. Listen Up is a safe space, and we use that safe space, right, listeners? So how can listeners of Listen Up Podcast continue to create safe spaces by ridding judgment and being inclusive? I know that you understand my like personal ideology and methodology of if we ourselves would stop judging ourselves so much, we can invite a safe space for others, because we really can only judge others on things that we judge ourselves on.
Right.
So you knowing that about me, we've talked about this in our personal lives. How do we put that to action?
Right. Again, I know we've said it a lot. It's being mindful.
Mindful.
Right? I mean, judgment comes with, sometimes it's learned, sometimes it's always learned to some degree, whether it's learned through, again, family, religion, what political views, socioeconomic views, whatever those views are. Judgment comes based off of a perception or an expectation, or
it has a source.
Yeah, it has a source. Yeah, there's
every judgment, every belief we have has a source.
Right. And that source could be the root cause, right?
Right.
In most cases, or it's a symptom to something else, right?
Right.
So to me, again, when I think of being inclusive and being intentional, it's always that mindfulness, and whether it's a symptom or the root cause of it, I don't even want to say pushing it aside, but that's the best way of saying it. I think, in our heads, things pop up, whether it's you hearing your grandmother, your mother, your father's voice, the husband, the boyfriend, the girlfriend, whatever the hell it was, something on TV, something we've all been told, a doctor, it comes up, and that other part of you in your has to say, let it go.
Yep.
Let it, just let it,
acknowledge, accept, let it go.
Let it go. That to me, that's being inclusive. It's really letting it go, and it's being two ways. So if I am intentional in letting it go, then I am going to be an intentional in that behavior or discussion or activity. But it's also okay if in that space, if I am not comfortable in that space, hearing it or understanding it, talking through it with that other person, whether it's at this point, it's hard for me to receive what you're saying because I don't believe in that, or I don't agree with that perspective because of my own experiences. That is also being inclusive.
Yeah.
It's being okay to even not to agree with what we may be intentionally not even thinking we're going to agree upon or with.
Right. Like me and you even disagree on some things.
Yeah.
I think like in our relationships, like we disagree on like how to act in our relationships a little bit, but we understand where the other person comes from. We understand like why we're both acting like that. We talk a lot about like just as underrepresented groups, as marginalized groups in the American society, we have to sometimes give grace and understanding to individuals who grew up in the 60s, 70s, where a lot of the language and the things that they do were okay.
Right.
So being inclusive enough to
accept it.
I get where you're coming from. I don't agree. I'm going to live my life this way, and I hope that they can give me the same grace of being inclusive enough to be accepting of the way that I'm living.
Right.
I like that you're making the connection between judgment and the intention. I feel like we often get caught up in hating or disliking those parts of ourselves. And I want to make it really clear. Shondra's not saying to dismiss these things. She's saying acknowledge them, accept them, and move forward and let it go. Letting it go doesn't mean dismissing.
Yeah, it's not accepting it. It's not always accepting it. It's more so letting. I can't control the situation, the behavior, the thought, the attitude. I can influence it. I can share it. I can tell the person how it makes me feel. But you also know that there's times when the receiver is not in the same space as you, very different. So you know that, again, because you're mindful, you know that you are never going to get them to think how I think. And that, again, it's not part of it, right? I think, again, as you get wiser, you realize that, because, again, if you would have asked me this question 20 years ago, my answer would have been totally different, because I thought part of inclusion at some point was accepting the things that maybe the other person, especially
accepting and then like adopting, like
somebody else's principle.
I had to live like you to accept the way that you live.
Right. And now it's like I don't have to live like you or even understand exactly how it feels to be in your shoes. But if I acknowledge your shoes are different, and if I still give you the same level of respect, it could be respect, it could be interaction, whatever again that situation is, and be very, again, intentional and mindful that am I going to treat you different than the person sitting next to them, and how will that feel? And we use something at work a lot when we talk about the DE&I space. It's two different forms of inclusion. One form is, hey, Alyssa, you're invited to the dance. Do you want to come to the dance? And you say, oh yes, I can't wait to come to the dance.
Right.
And again, did I offer that same, I offer everybody to come to the dance. That's one piece of inclusion, and many times we stop there.
And that's probably the one that we're most often experiencing. Like when we hear inclusion, I think like the typical person would think like, oh, making sure that you invite everybody to the party.
Right.
Making sure you offer everyone a dessert or whatever.
Right. But now it's the opposite. Well, it's not the opposite. That's just the first part of inclusion. The second part of inclusion is when you're at the dance, do you get to dance? And if you get to dance, there's many pieces of it, is because we're offering an array of different music that you may like. Is that why? Is it because we make sure that everybody has a dancing partner? Is it because we make sure that no matter how you dance, you're going to feel safe dancing it, So, but again, it's those types of things. So I always try to think of that. Inviting the person's one piece, but including them in that invitation and making them feel comfortable is really what inclusion is to me the biggest
really
piece.
The biggest piece.
The biggest piece. And then you start going into that next level of inclusion. So if I let them dance, then it really starts going into equality at that point.
Yes.
So to me, it's like that transition. Remember, you and I were talking about that DE and I, and, again, a lot of places I say diversity, we're all diverse.
Yes.
Right. And the more you dig, whether you all look, we all look the same when we walk in a room, we are diverse when you start going and asking the questions.
Because no matter what, we're all coming from a different experience and bringing different attributes to the table. So like Shondra said in the beginning, she doesn't believe that, you don't believe that your attributes are the best attributes. No. You understand that there are different attributes, and taking the time to invite people to the party and taking time to make sure that once they get to the party, they feel safe enough and happy enough, and we're playing the right type of music that everyone can enjoy, that they're safe enough to dance. I think that makes a lot of sense. It's like we all are bringing something unique to the table, and I believe that we're all multifaceted. I just really enjoyed that when you were describing my strengths, it immediately opened up my weaknesses too. So you're like, you're so confident, but you're mindful in the areas where you're not so confident. You're outspoken, but you're professional. This, but still this. So I think that feeds into why it's not really necessary to choose what attributes make a successful person.
You're absolutely right. It's a wrong. Again, how we say, how do again, I have tons of books, I read books. How do books become books? And whether it's a workbook, whether it's a project, and how your methodology, it always comes by what has worked, but to figure out what has worked is most of the time because it hasn't worked, right? That's the reality, success and then failure, right? So you're writing it, and again, me and your dad, sometimes we'll talk even about this, that it's really that book or methodology or whatever, they're very much the same. So you're just using a different illustration, different words, different this, different that. But again, how we get to success looks different. And so if every path we take is this way, and like I said, just us talking, we've picked up on you saying something and me perceiving it differently. Yeah. So it goes back to everything we're saying in inclusion and in diversity and where we're at in the world and how to empower ourselves, that if we look at pathways and we put blinders on it, we're missing so much we're missing so much, even when we make decisions. It can be done so different if you had different people at the table. You could make a decision today that can take us a year to get there, but if we brought the right people in that may have done it.
Maybe it took us 2 weeks.
Exactly. And then you'd been like, damn it, I could have, so it's again, putting yourselves in that space, talking about it, feeling comfortable, having podcasts and sharing it, because that one person that could hear it, it could change the rest of their life. And they may figure out something that could have taken 20 years in 2 weeks.
So go to a Listen Up Official on TikTok, and we are going to put a poll on there and ask questions, ask anyone who wants to respond. Please tell us a moment in your listening experience on a Listen Up podcast where you connected. If you had an aha moment, if you had a little baby epiphany when you were listening to any episodes 1 through 4, reply to our
page, a Listen Up Official.
Poll on TikTok, on a Listen Up Official.
I love it.
Wherever you connect with me at, I would love to know where that's at. What are the pieces of a Listen Up podcast that make you feel empowered?
Answer the poll.
And I hope to bring more of that
Listen Up Official
in more of our episodes.
I love it.
Because that's really important. That's really the whole theme of a Listen Up podcast. Right. What would be a message if you were on top of a mountain and you knew that this message was actually going to be heard by every single person? What would you say?
I would say, if you put love and gratitude first, you can conquer all.
Thank you so much for tuning in to a Listen Up podcast, episode number 5. Check me out on TikTok and Instagram. TikTok is at a Listen Up Official, and Instagram is at ALYSSAN_UP, a listen.up. Check me out because I'm giving you tips and tricks on self-advocacy always and how to empower yourself and empower the people around you. A Listen Up.